Guys, so I invited two beautiful young ladies, both in their mid 20s, to chat about various topics. Of course, the number one on the news now is Tory Lanez and Megan Thee Stallion, and of course Tory Lanez got that guilty verdict. Guys, that will be the first one to ask about. So Young is a part of the medical industry, and she's finishing up her education there, and also Free, she's pursuing her studies in education and all that stuff, and both are pretty intelligent. I had a good conversation with them yesterday. I was so impressed with them that and definitely I want to get more of their take on the Tory Lanez verdict. So guys, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so this is a very complex trial, and it was a highly anticipated trial here. I think one of the big takeaways from this trial that I noticed was kind of the treatment towards Black women in general. I think, especially in the beginning, people were kind of reluctant to believe Megan Thee Stallion when she came out and first kind of shared that she'd been shot by Tory Lanez. And that was echoed through lots of media outlets, and even in songs. I know recently even Drake, as much as I enjoy his music, he did there was a lyric in one of his songs where he mentioned that Megan was lying, and so there was this kind of idea that, or people generally had this idea that she was being dishonest. And I think it kind of it just shows kind of the reluctance in general of people to believe Black women when they come forward with their trauma. She, and even though she's super successful, she has a lot of money, but people were still, didn't think that she was telling the truth, or kind of were trying to justify what happened to her. I think also a lot of throughout the trial, a lot of personal details about her had come out, and they were trying to use that to discredit her in a way. And I think that happens to a lot of women in general, but especially with Black women, who are often dehumanized systemically. Details, private details of her sexual history came out, and that was kind of used to try to reduce or decrease her credibility. So I think overall the guilty verdict, or his conviction, was I think it was a win, not just for Megan but for all Black women. And yeah, I'm happy for her. So yeah. What about you, Free?
Well, I think you pretty much covered everything. I think that for sure she was kind of a representation of all, not just Black women, but women worldwide who don't necessarily have their stories told accurately, or have their stories kind of watered down to make it seem like it wasn't as bad as it was. But I thought what was so interesting about her trial was that you could see that something happened to her, and there was evidence that happened. It wasn't you couldn't see the fact that she was badly hurt by an individual. But people at first didn't believe it, because it just seemed too out of this world to happen to someone as high profile as her. But I think it just shows that it happens to everyone, and just the fact that she's handling it with such grace, and still having the courage to be herself still, and put a voice out there, I think would be really encouraging for a lot of women worldwide.
Okay. Yeah, so I wanted to talk, and I wanted to not go on a soapbox. I don't know if you guys know what that means. You normally have preachers who stand on soapbox in the ministry. I don't want to go on a soapbox, but
from this one, you'll have to understand that I believe that when I first was growing up in the 80s, the first group I ever heard of, rap group, was EPMD. And, you know, it was a next door neighbor who liked the group, and I never really got into it. It wasn't until about 92 when I heard a song called Nothing But a G Thing. And it was by Snoop Dogg. And that was when I first got my entrance into rap. And during that time, Snoop was a great example of what it was, how you could attract young people into a genre that was toxic. And I put some of the lyrics on the, you know, of one of his songs, Can You Control Your Hoe? And if you read the lyrics, you will see that this is just a song. And there are many other songs like this. And in the song, you can see from the lyrics, it is, she hard-headed, she just won't obey, right? And you skip 2 lines, and you see, you've got to put that B in her place, even if it's slapping her in the face, right? Now, when you think of those lyrics, the one thing that I would say to anyone is that it's bigger than just Tory Lanez. It's more of a culture. And that culture of violence against women is something that I think the greater society is helping us to reject it. Because it's like we are not rejecting it on our own. And I also want to talk about hip-hop culture and rap, gangster rap. A long time ago, it was different. There's a difference between hip-hop and gangster rap. I don't see the difference anymore. And gangster rap was the type of stuff that a young guy would listen to and buy a CD, and the CD would say some parent advisory stuff on it. Like, you guys are too young. Have you ever seen a CD with parent advisory on it?
Yeah.
I feel like certain artists try that today too. I see it on some of their album covers.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and so this would be the stuff that would be fed into a young guy's brain, and he would believe that a woman should be put in her place. And I honestly don't believe that anyone doesn't believe Megan Thee Stallion. I don't believe that. What I do believe, however, is, and I will be very clear on this, she wasn't shot through the foot. She got shrapnel. So it's what looks like to me, and this is just my theory, was that he was just exhibiting a bit of recklessness, and he was shooting in the direction of her, and some of the shrapnel hit her foot. That, I don't know how that changes anything, but I think it's different. I mean, someone shooting someone at their foot, because I have 2 theories. Either he was shooting at her foot and he missed, and then the shrapnel hit it, or he was just being reckless and it hit her, the shrapnel hit her foot. But what's important though was in the aftermath, as you guys rightfully said, and it's also in my comment section, I can see it, that there's 2 sides to the coin. There's one set of people who agree with you guys 100% of the fact that, you know, people are not listening to black women, all of that stuff. And there's another set of people who say Megan is lying, or she's a thought, so who cares, right? And that type of misogyny is something that I think is the negatives that I think. Now, have you guys faced that in your personal life, or you've only seen this online?
I feel like I've only seen it online, but I've seen it like in different circumstances, like when having to do with like assault or like any type of like mistreatment towards women. There is especially like with women in general, but maybe more specifically with Black women or women of color, that there's like a common like trend to like not believe her until she's proven innocent, and still like she's innocent until proven guilty type of thing. Like they won't like believe her story until like there's actual evidence proving her that she's in the right, as opposed to just believing her right away. I think I see that trend a lot, and that could stem from like in the past, there's been women who have said things or accused men who did not do anything to them at all, just like for money or for clout or anything like that. But I think more times often than not, like a woman wouldn't want to put herself through that humiliation if nothing actually happened. So I think like after seeing that happen, that's where that mistrust towards women who are rightfully telling like what happened to them comes from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, like I definitely do see how women are often like objectified just in our society, in the media. And I think because of that objectification, like violence against women often becomes justified. And I think like all women experience it regardless of color, but I think, there's something to be said about like intersectionality and how like different identities can lead to different experiences, different social experiences. And like, as a person of color, you're oppressed systemically, and then as a woman, you also experience misogyny, or you're a victim of misogyny. But then when that's interacted, or when those two identities interact, like it can lead to kind of a different kind of experience as like a woman of color. And I think especially within the Black community, I think especially because Black men historically and currently have largely been kind of excluded from like mainstream ways of attaining like wealth or like socioeconomic mobility, upward mobility, because of those barriers that Black men face. And I'm just speaking from a Black person's perspective. I think that frustration can sometimes come out in the way they treat women, and to kind of assert that power or dominance, they end up they end up being violent towards the women in the community, towards Black women. I think Black women have been are tired of this, and it's something that Black women do talk about a lot, that the Black men are just not treating Black women right. And I think I know it's a complex issue and there are lots of factors that contribute to it, but I think as Black people who've experienced or are still kind of dealing with the like intergenerational trauma that's resulted from slavery, the dynamic between men and women in the community is more kind of tainted, or just kind of tainted by violence, just because of those.
So
Yeah.
Can I ask you guys a question? And do you feel like you're part of a Black community?